Hello, are you ready to learn for today? What you will learn for today is all about deriving the equation of a quadratic function given its graph. But before we start, let's recall about the x and y intercepts because we'll use x-intercept on our lesson for today. So, as we defined, the x-intercept is the x-coordinate of the point where the parabola intersect the x-axis. In this point, it is wherein your y is equal to 0. So, dito makikita nyo, itong point na to, tsaka itong point na to, both negative 1, 0 and 3, 0 will be having the x-intercept. But the values of x-intercept are only the x-coordinate of those points. So we are just considering negative 1 and 3. So the x-intercept for this given example is negative 1 and positive 3. Same time, the y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the parabola intersects the x-axis. So, this is also the point where your x is equal to 0. Yan. So, in this case, we are just considering the y-coordinate. So, on this point, yan, it is having the point 0, negative 3. We'll just be considering negative 3 as our y-coordinate. So, our y-intercept will be equal to negative 3. So, as we continue, for today, we'll just be focusing on one type of intercept. That is the x-intercept. So as we continue, x-intercept are also called zeros. So it is also the roots of the function. The number of x-intercept indicates the number of solution depending on the given function. Now we have different kinds of graph as we vary different numbers of solutions. At the same time, different numbers of x-intercept. If your graph looks like this one, wherein your parabola intersects your x-axis at 2 points, that means you'll be having two zeros or two x-intercepts. That is also mean that you also have two solutions. But if your graph looks like this one, wherein this parabola intersects your x-axis at only 1 point, that means you only have one intercept or 1, 0. And if your parabola doesn't have any real solution, that is where your parabola looks like this one. It doesn't intersect your x-axis. That means you don't have any zeros or any x-intercept on the given parabola. So let's have a practice wherein we try to identify some of the x-intercept or zeros of the following given graph. So in this case, all you need to do is to focus on the x-intercept. So ito yun, yung makikita nyo dyan na color pink na line. So that is the x-axis. So dyan pala i-focus natin. So as we continue, let's try to zoom in this part. Yan. So dyan tayo mag-focus. And as we consider the color red line, that is where we will identify the intersection of your parabola and your x-axis. So at this point, that will be on the point negative 4, 0 and positive 2, 0. That is where your parabola intersects that x-axis. And all you need to do to identify the x-intercept is to identify the x-coordinate of those points. So that will be the x-intercept or zeros of the following will be negative 4 and positive 2. Gets po? Okay, let's continue. Let's have another example. Okay, we have here another graph that is opening upward. So all we need to do is to identify the x-intercept. So to identify, once again, let's focus on this line, which is the x-axis. Yan. So as we focus and zoom in this part, this is where your graph or the parabola intersect the x-axis. So dito sa point na yan. And that will be also the vertex of your parabola. And that point is around 2, 0. So in this case, to identify the value of x-intercept, all you need to do is to focus on the x-coordinate of that point, and that will only be 1. Because your parabola only intersects once the x on the x-axis, that means we only have one x-intercept or 0 on this parabola. So that is 2. 2 only. Wala na siyang ibang kasama na value kasi isang beses lang siya nag-intersect ng x-axis. Okay, let's consider another example. So we have here this parabola facing downward. So once again, let's try to focus on the x-axis and as well as the parabola given. So zoom in natin. So as you can see on this given parabola, it doesn't intersect your x-axis. That means, do you have any x-intercept or zeros? Yan. So the answer is none. Kasi hindi naman siya tumama or walang point na nag-intersect dun sa parabola tsaka dito sa ating x-axis. Right now, we are ready to derive the equation of any quadratic function given its graph. So if graphs representing quadratic function y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c is given, the equation representing the graph can be determined given any of the following conditions. So first, 3 points on the parabola, not considering the x-intercept nor the vertex. So another one could be a vertex and a point of the parabola. Next is the x-intercepts and a point on the parabola if the coordinates of the vertex are not integral. So we have these three conditions wherein any of the following given from the parabola may do, but we'll just be focusing on these two given. So, given a vertex and a point on the parabola, we'll try to solve or identify the equation of the quadratic function. At the same time, we could also use the x-intercept and any point on the parabola, considering if the vertex is not integral. So, ibig sabihin, hindi siya whole number, ah, possibility nun is hindi siya sakto dun sa mga intersection ng mga grids natin sa Cartesian plane. So, gagamitin natin si letter C. Especially kapag yung x-intercepts natin ay visible. So, as we start, let's try to have the steps in deriving the quadratic function given its graph wherein the vertex is integral. So, katulad nito, makikita mo siya dun sa mga intersection ng grids natin, whole number yung vertex niya. So, madali siyang i-identify. And we also try to consider another point on the graph. So, the first step is to identify the vertex HK from the graph. So, in this case, if it is opening upward, look for the lowest point. If it is opening downward, look for the highest point. That's where you can see the vertex. Yan, identify lang natin yung dalawang yon. Second is to substitute the vertex hk to the standard form of the quadratic function y is equal to a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. Third, identify one point xy from the graph and substitute it as x and y value from the standard form. Fourth is solve for the value of a and substitute it to the given standard form of the quadratic function. And lastly, you have to transform that quadratic function into general form y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So para mas maintindihan natin tong mga steps na meron tayo in identify the equation of the quadratic functions graph, let's try to have some examples. Okay, example number 1. So the instruction says, determine the quadratic function y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c represented by the given graph. So, ang final answer natin dito is naka-general form na. At the same time, I already have here the shortened version of the 5 steps that we'll be going to do. At the same time, meron din tayo ditong graph na given natin. Now, first step is for us to identify the vertex HK. So all we need to do is to identify the highest point since our parabola is opening downward. So andito siya sa point na yan. So we'll try to name that vertex as negative 1, 0 or the point negative 1, 0. So lagay lang natin siya dito sa ating table on the steps. So let's write the vertex HK as negative 1, 0. Next is for us to substitute this hk on the standard form y is equal to a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. So, parang ganito yung format. Ilalagay lang natin yung h tsaka yung k dun sa loob ng ating standard form. So, all we need to do is is to write negative 1 here and dito naman 0. So in this case, kung mapapansin nyo, negative minus negative 1. So we can replace this minus sign as plus kasi negative times negative, di ba? Para maging positive yan. So next step is for us to substitute a point on the parabola. So for me, let's try to identify one point on the parabola. So let's have this 1, -4. So ito yung point na yan. So any point may do. Basta integral yung value na makukuha nyo para madali siyang substitute. So I have here point 1, -4. So all we need to do is to substitute this uh, xy value. So lagay ko muna siya dito, 1, -4. This is a value of x and this is the y on the parabola. So substitute natin siya. So tinanggal ko na dito yung y and x. So nandito yung y kanina, 'di ba? Tapos nandito yung x. So papalitan natin si y ngayon ng -4. That is a point on the parabola. Then 1 naman kay x. So yan yung sinubstitute natin. And we'll try to use that given form of equation for us to solve for the value of a. So kapag umabot ka na dyan sa part na yan, tuloy mo lang yung form niya. So ito, kinopya ko lang siya. -4 is equal to a times a quantity 1 plus 1 quantity squared. So yan. So simplify lang natin dito for us to solve for the value of a. So ganito yung gagawin natin. First copy -4, then a times, ito, 1 plus 1, we can simplify it and make it equal to 2. Then copy square. Then simplify natin si, yan, copy lang natin, -4. Simplify natin si 2 squared, that will be equal to 4. Making our equation be equal to -4 is equal to 4a. Yan, in this case, I think masosolve na natin yung value ni a. We use division, property of equality. We divide 4 for both sides. Yan, para matira na lang dito, kay a is yung a na lang. Divide 4 divided by 4 will be 1. So, then -4 divided by 4 is -1. So, yan, ayusin lang natin, reflexive property of equality. A will be equal to -1. So, yan. Pwede natin pagbaligtarin yan. So, in this case, natapos na natin. Sabi, solve for A or solve for the value of A. Ayan na. A is equal to -1. Ano yung susunod na step? So, ilalagay na natin siya dun sa ating, yan, dito sa una nating nagawa, yung standard form. Kasi ang kulang lang dito, aside from, ayun, meron na tayong vertex. Ang kulang na lang dyan is yung A value natin. And in this case, this is -1. So, ilagay lang natin siya dito. A is equal to -1. Ayan na. Now, all we need to do is to transform this into general form. Y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So, ganito yung gagawin natin. Una, copy. Y is equal to -1. Isolve muna natin tong x plus 1 quantity squared. So, another form of x plus 1 quantity squared is multiplying x plus 1 to itself. So, x plus 1 times x plus 1. Then, you can do FOIL. Y is equal to -1. So, yan muna yung simplify mo, yung nasa loob. So, x times x is x squared. X times positive 1 is plus 1x or plus x. 1 times x is plus x as well. Then 1 times 1 is positive 1. So, plus 1 tayo dito. Next is for us to furtherly simplify this one by adding similar terms. So, copy mo lang y is equal to -1 times x squared. Add natin tong similar terms, x plus x, that will become 2x, then plus 1. So, para maging general form na siya, distribute na lang natin si a. So, times natin siya sa lahat or multiply natin siya sa lahat. -1 times x squared, so magiging -x squared. Then -1 times 2x, so magiging minus 2x. -1 times 1 will become -1. So this will be our standard for our general form. So the answer will be y is equal to -x squared minus 2x minus 1. Okay, let's have example number 2. So determine the quadratic function y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c represented by this given graph. So same instruction. So first step is for us to identify the vertex HK. In this case, our parabola is opening upward. Therefore, we can identify the vertex by having the lowest point of the parabola. So ito yon, and that point will be 1, positive 2. So lagay lang natin siya dito. HK is 1, positive 2. Now, in this case, yan, tapos na tayo dyan sa step na yan. Let's proceed to the second step wherein we try to write the standard form by substituting the values of h and k. So, yan, palitan lang natin yung h natin ng 1 and then yung k natin ng 2. So, yan, ganyan lang kasimple. Ilagay lang natin sila doon, 1 and 2 as the value of the vertex. Next is for us to identify any point on the parabola that can be used for us to solve for the value of a. So in this case, I think ito pipiliin ko. Yan, yung point na yan. So that point xy will be 0, 4. So, dito na tayo. Then, lagay lang natin dito. Ang kinuha kong point will be 0, 4. So, 0 and 4. Then next, all we need to do is to try to write once again the standard form, but in this case, we'll try to write that values of x and y. So kanina nandito yung y, andito yung x. So papalitan natin yung y natin ngayon ng kinuha natin dun sa point na 4, and then yung x naman natin dito is yung 0. And we'll try to use this given equation for us to solve for the value of a. So, gagamitin natin siya dito sa baba. So, rewrite lang natin siya ulit. Ito na siya. So, 4 is equal to a times the quantity 0 minus 1 squared plus 2. So, rewrite natin si 4. Simplify natin. 0 minus 1. That will be equal to negative 1 quantity squared plus 2. Then, simplify ulit natin. 4 is equal to, pwede nating square si negative 1. Magiging positive 1 na siya. Plus 2. Then, 4 is equal to, a times 1 will be equal to a plus 2. So, in this case, rewrite lang ulit natin siya. A is equal to, 4 is equal to a plus 2. Then, we can subtract 2 for both sides. Yan. So, this one will become positive 2 is equal to a. Reflexive property of equality, we can say a is equal to positive 2. Yan, so positive siya. Siyempre, it's opening upward. Now, we'll try to use this value of a and once again write the standard form, but in this time, papalitan na natin ngayon yung a natin. Lagay na natin dito yung 2, which is the value of a na na-solve natin. So, ayusin na natin sulat. Yan, 2. Then, in this case, all we need to do is to transform this into standard form by first simplifying yung binomial square na x minus 1 quantity squared. So, ganito muna. Y is equal to, rewrite mo muna. Write mo ulit yung 2. Then, rewrite natin to as x minus 1 times x minus 1. So, we can do FOIL plus 2. So, y is equal to, FOIL natin, 2 times x will be x squared. X times negative 1 will be negative x. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1 or plus 1. Then, copy mo lang dito si 2. Then, add natin yung similar terms. So, copy lang muna natin y is equal to 2 times x squared. Yan, add natin to. Negative x minus x, that will be negative 2x plus 1. Then, plus 2 tayo dito. So, tuloy natin. So, now we are ready to distribute this 2 on the trinomial inside the parentheses. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 2x is negative 4x. And 2 times 1 is plus 2 or positive 2. Then, don't forget na meron tayong plus 2 pa nandito. Ito yun, no? Yan, huwag mong kalimutan, may plus 2 ka pa. Simplify mo by adding that 2 plus 2. So, we'll have now 2x squared, y is equal to 2x squared, minus 4x plus 4. Yan. Kaya siya naging 4, 2 plus 2. So, this is now our general form. Y is equal to 2x squared minus 4x plus 4. So, yan. Okay, for this part, we will once again derive the equation of quadratic function given its graph, but this time we'll be using the integral x-intercept and any point of the parabola. So, kailan to ginagamit? So, madalas ginagamit tong condition na to kung sakaling ang vertex mo is not integral. Or kung makikita mo dito sa lowest point ng ating parabola na given dito sa taas is itong point na to, hindi natin try i-identify ng eksaktong value ng h tsaka ng k niya pagdating sa vertex. So in that case, we will look for other points, and if the given graph will show you the x-intercept or 2x-intercept on this given graph. So, pwede natin gamitin yon. So, pag meron dalawang given na x-intercept, pwede itong way na gagawin natin ngayon. So, here are the steps. We have to identify the x-intercepts or zeros from the graph and then set them as x sub 1 and x sub 2. So, that's the first step. Second, is for us to substitute this x sub 1 and x sub 2 to this form of the quadratic function y is equal to a times the quantity x minus x sub 1 times the quantity x minus x sub 2. So, bakit yan yung form na gagamitin natin? Ito ay dahil this x minus x sub 1 times x minus x sub 2, those two forms are considered as the factors of a quadratic function. And that is coming from the x-intercept and zeros of your given parabola or of your given graph of quadratic function. So, yun yung gagamitin nating parang formula for us to identify the equation of the quadratic function given this graph. Next, number 3. Once again, we'll try to identify one point, xy, from the graph and substitute it as x and y value to the equation. Step 4, solve for the value of a and substitute it to the equation y is equal to a times the quantity x minus x sub 1 times the quantity x minus x sub 2. So, step 5, once again, for the last part, once you simplify the equation above, all you need to do is to transform this into a quadratic function in general form. Y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So, para mas maintindihan natin to, let's try to have some examples. Example number 1. So, once again, determine the quadratic function y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c represented by this given graph. So, as you can see, dun sa first step na diniscuss natin kanina, all we have to do is to identify the x-intercepts. So, ito, x sub 1 tsaka x sub 2. So, dapat dalawa yung ma-identify natin. This is given graph. Ito kung makikita nyo, yan. Ito yung ating x-intercepts. So, that will be the point negative 2, 0 and positive 1, 0. So, sulat lang natin dito. Kung i-consider natin dun sa point, x coordinate lang, di ba, ang ating x-intercept. So, consider lang natin si negative 2 tsaka si positive 1. Next, we are to substitute this x sub 1 and x sub 2 on this form. So, blankoan ko lang dyan sa part ng sulat natin yung x sub 1 tsaka x sub 2. Copyin natin. This one, lagay natin negative 2. Yan yung x sub 1 natin. And dito is positive 1. Ito naman yung x sub 2 natin. So, as you can see, negative times negative, yan, pwede na natin itong gawing. Instead of x minus, magiging siyang x plus. Now, the next step is for us to substitute a point on the parabola xy. So, hanap muna tayo dito ng point, any point on this given parabola. So, tingin ko gamitin natin tong point na to. So, this point is 0, negative 2. So, sulat lang natin dito xy. So, yan si 0, negative 2. So, in this case, all we need to do is to substitute it as the values of x and y on this given equation above. So, ito yon yung may y kanina at ito yung nasa taas, dalawa yung x natin. So, papalitan natin tong y natin ng negative 2 kasi ang point natin is 0, negative 2. And then, itong dalawang x natin, papalitan natin siya ng 0. So, 0. Now, as you can see, ang matitira na lang dito sa equation natin na to ay a. So, yan ang gagamitin natin for us to solve for the value of a. So, as we continue, copyin lang natin yan. Ayan o, negative 2 is equal to a times 0 minus 2, ay 0 plus 2 times 0 minus 1. So, yan. Solve muna natin. Negative 2 is equal to a times 0 plus 2 is 2. Then 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Multiply natin yan dalawang yan. So, copyin ko muna negative 2 A times 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Yan. So, here we will be having, yan, continue natin dito sa gilid. Negative 2 is equal to A times negative 2 is negative 2A. Therefore, we can divide both sides by negative 2. Yan. So, A is equal to positive 1. So, ayusin lang natin, reflexive property of equality. A is equal to positive 1. Now, in this case, we will use this value of A and try to rewrite this form once again. But in this time, papalitan na natin si A. So, ito yung form kanina. Y is equal to A times X plus 2 times X minus 1. So, andito yung A kanina. So, papalitan na natin yan yung A ngayon ng 1. So, pwede na hindi natin isulat yan si 1 kasi multiply man natin siya dun sa product ng X plus 2 tsaka X minus 1. Ganun pa rin naman. So, we can just write it as X plus 2 times X minus 1. Now, in this case, all we need to do is to do FOIL for it to be in general form. So, Y is equal to X times X is X squared. X times negative 1 is negative X. 2 times X is positive 2X. Then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Then all we need to do is to add these two similar terms. We will now have Y is equal to X squared. Negative X plus 2X is plus X na lang. Yan. Plus X then minus 2. So as you can see, yan na, lumabas na yung sagot dito. So the answer will be Y is equal to X squared plus X minus 2. Okay, let's have this second example. So once again, we are to determine the quadratic function in general form. So from the given, we have the parabola opening downward. But yes, in this case, pwede kang gumamit ng vertex kasi integral yung vertex dito. Pero try naman natin siyang sagutan ng gamit yung x-intercept. So step number 1, identify the x-intercept of this given graph. So in this case, ito yon, kung saan siya tumama sa x-axis. And these points are negative 1, 0 and positive 3, 0. So all we need to do is to identify the x-intercept by getting the x-coordinates of those 2 points. So I have x sub 1 as negative 1 and x sub 2 as positive 3. Yan. As we proceed, we'll try to substitute that x sub 1 and x sub 2 in this form. So, lagay lang natin yan since x sub 1 will be negative 1 and x sub 2 is positive 3. So, lagay lang natin sila dyan. But in this case, minus negative 1. So, pwede natin tong palitan ng plus 1 na siya. Yan. So, as we continue, we'll try to get any point of this given graph for us to substitute later. So, kuha muna tayo ng point. Saan kaya yung pwede dito? Yan. Try natin tong vertex. Pwede rin yan magamit. Point pa rin naman siya sa parabola. So, that point on the parabola will be 1, positive 4. So, lagay lang natin dito, xy, 1, then 4. So, as we continue, gagamitin natin once again itong form na to. But in this time, papalitan natin yung x tsaka y value niya. So, andito yung y kanina, then andito yung dalawang values ni x. Yan. So, palitan natin yung y ngayon. Since we get 1, 4 as 1 point on the parabola, we'll replace this 1 by 4. And yung dalawang x, papalitan natin ng 1. Yan. So, as we continue, we'll try to use this given equation or nagawa nating equation para ma-solve yung value ni a. So, let's just copy that one. Yan. O, tama ba? 4 is equal to a times 1 plus 1 times 1 minus 3. Ayan, tama tayo. Now, as we continue, we'll try to have, copy muna natin to si 4, then a, 1 plus 1 is 2, then 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Yan, so, simplify natin by multiplying 2 times negative 2, that will be negative 4. So, lagay natin dito, 4 is equal to a times negative 4, that will be negative 4a. Yan. Then, right now, we can divide this both by negative 4. Yan, negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. Then 4 divided by negative 4 is negative 1. So A is equal to negative 1. So pwede natin siya isulat na ganyan. Yan. In this case, yan, alam natin na is opening downward. Kaya nga negative 1 yung A natin. So as we continue, we'll try to use this value of A for us to get the general form. So lalagay lang natin ulit yung na-solve natin kanina. Yung A natin dito, papalitan na natin ngayon ng negative 1. So since negative 1 na yung A natin, yeah, simplify lang natin to, multiply natin tong dalawang binomial, then we multiply negative 1 from the results. So, y is equal to negative 1 times, foil muna natin to, x times x is x squared, x times negative 3 is negative 3x, 1 times x is x, so plus x to, then 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So, simplify na muna natin yung nandun sa loob. Negative 1, copy ulit natin, x squared, negative 3x times plus x pala. So, magiging negative 2x siya. Then, copy negative 3. Right now, we can distribute this negative 1 to get the final equation. We have negative 1 times x squared. We have negative x squared. Negative 1 times negative 2x. We have positive 2x. So, magiging plus 2x na siya. Negative 1 times negative 3, magiging positive 3 na siya. So, plus 3 na to. And our equation will now be y is equal to negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. So, yan siya. Y is equal to negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. I hope you understand the lesson for today. Until next time, bye!